Today on Ag News Daily.
The size of the deal, the long-term nature of the deal, the purchaser in the deal, I think really, sends a message to the downstream market that Agoro Carbon is a high-quality soil carbon producer, and for our producers means that, we're here for the long term. We're extremely committed to the mission of driving regen ag through these carbon finance mechanisms.
Welcome back to the 4th of July edition of the Ag News Daily podcast. Here, recording and releasing on the 3rd. How you doing, Delaney?
I'm good. How are you, Tanner?
Pretty good. Can't complain. It looks like we should have some decent weather here coming up for the 4th of July. You got any big plans?
Well, I shouldn't even say this. I'm in Canada, which seems very un-American of me to celebrate the 4th of July here, which is why we're recording virtually. But it is going to be fun. We're in Western Canada in Calgary, which we've been told is very much like the Western U.S., and it's Calgary Stampede Days, so I think we're going to get a little taste of America while we're here still.
Well, I should have put a little Canadian weather into the forecast that I am putting out this week, but I don't. Here we will focus a lot on the Midwest. We are currently experiencing a quieter weather pattern with a little bit warmer and drier conditions as we head into this holiday weekend. A few northern showers may linger, but other systems are expected to pop up this weekend. A slow-moving front could remain into the first parts of next week, bringing more showers mid to late in the week. Overall, conditions remain mostly favorable for those key growing regions. In the central and southern plains, scattered storms will continue. Wet fields are slowing the wheat harvest in some areas, but recent rain has supported the corn and soybean growth. That is where flooding did not happen. The northern plains will see increased activity as new systems are expected to arrive tonight and move widespread showers and storms into the area that are expected Friday and Saturday. More likely, a little bit of rain next week as well, which might not be ideal for our friends in the northern for their holiday festivities. Delaney?
Yeah, I don't know if you're planning on heating up the grill this weekend, Tanner, but may not be ideal if we're getting some forecasted rain this weekend.
That's right.
Well, crop conditions showed mixed results again this week. Ratings varied widely from region to region, although as a nation, generally favorable crop condition developments. According to the latest crop condition report, 73% of the corn is rated in good to excellent conditions, up 3 percentage points from last week. 8% of the crop is silking, slightly above the 5-year average of 6%. Soybeans remained steady with 66% rated good to excellent. 94% of soybeans have emerged, and 17% are blooming, and 3% now are even at the pod setting stage. All are near normal levels. Winter wheat ratings fell 1 point to 48% in good to excellent conditions. 38% of the crop harvested, although seeing some delays, of course, due to that rain, compared to the average 42% this time of year. Also, spring wheat rated 53% good to excellent, down 1 percentage point, while 96% has emerged, which is a little ahead of pace here, and 38% of the crop is headed.
Sounds like some good progress there. We saw the USDA making some progress as they began to phase the reopening of southern ports to resume imports of live cattle, bison, and horses from Mexico. This follows the ongoing efforts between the U.S. and Mexico to control the New World screwworm. Only animals born and raised in the states of Sonora and Chihuahua treated under this strict USDA rules will be allowed. These protocols have kept rejection rates low and will help maintain border safety. Imports will restart July 7th in Douglas, Arizona. Other ports will reopen through mid-September, including Columbus, Santa Teresa, New Mexico, Del Rio in Texas, and the reopenings of the Del Rio and Laredo will depend upon 2 additional Mexican states adopting their same screwworm controls. USDA has reported no recent increases in those screwworm cases or additional spreading towards the United States, marking that factors they were continuing to watch and move forward with for the reopening of these imports. Meanwhile, the new sterile fly production facilities are being built in Texas and could be ready by the end of 2025. Mexico is also updating its facility to increase sterile fly production by up to over 100 million flies per week by 2026. So good progress there.
Yeah, I think we're working on getting a screwworm / fly interview secured here after the holiday weekend, Tanner. So hopefully more to come on that. I'm super intrigued by this sterile fly production. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we can get a hold of somebody. It'll be one of those weird and probably fun interviews all at the same time.
I agree. Well, this week the Senate has passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act by a 51-50 vote, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting that tie-breaking vote. The bill advances key parts of President Trump's domestic agenda. The bill includes a myriad of major agriculture provisions, including increasing support for crop insurance, disaster aid and dairy programs. The bill also raises subsidy payment limits, and removes income caps for farmers. Conservation funding is reduced compared to earlier proposals. Tax measures included in the bill feature a permanent 20% deduction for small businesses, higher estate tax exemptions, and special rules for farmland sales. Clean fuel and biodiesel tax credits are extended, while penalties for certain wind and solar projects are removed, and the small agro-biodiesel producer credit doubles to 20 cents per gallon. The 45Z clean fuel production credit is also extended now through 2029, which, heard from Continuum Ag folks, that's good news there for 45Z, with feedstocks limited now to North American sources. The top payment rate lowered from $1.75 to $1 per gallon. On the nutrition side, changes to food assistance programs are expected to reduce SNAP spending by about $186 billion over the next 10 years. This is mainly due to expanded work requirements for able-bodied adults, seniors up to the age of 64, and parents with older children. This bill, of course, also shifts some of the administrative costs to states and delays penalties for high error rates. Farm groups, including the American Soybean Association, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and the National Corn Growers Association, have offered their public support of this bill's farm tax and research provisions. With the House's version that was passed back in May, lawmakers will now work to reconcile both versions before the July 4th deadline, Tanner, which is tomorrow. So
it's tomorrow.
We will see how that comes together and what moves forward from here. But two different versions. Now we have to reconcile and see how we move forward to get it to President Trump's desk.
Yeah, that's a big task for them. They will be busy, and the USDA has been busy. Second story of the day, talking about their trade mission that they plan on leading to the Dominican Republic from July 13th through the 17th. The goal is to expand the market access and boost American agricultural exports. The delegation includes 47 agribusinesses, trade groups, officials, and others, more coming from agricultural departments of Colorado, Montana, and Wisconsin. Michelle Beckering, the Undersecretary of Trade and Foreign Agricultural Affairs, will lead this mission. She says that the USDA is committed to opening new export opportunities and connecting U.S. exporters with buyers in Latin America. The Dominican Republic is already a strong trading partner. It ranks fourth in the Western Hemisphere for U.S. ag exports and leads among the countries for the Central American Free Trade Agreement, Dominican Republic region. In 2024, the U.S. agricultural exports to the Dominican Republic reached $2.2 billion. The U.S. now supplies nearly half of that country's agricultural imports. So a good partner there, and hopefully a mission that comes out with even more positive news.
Well, speaking of trade news, we got a big trade announcement here late in the week as President Trump announced that the United States had reached a trade deal agreement with Vietnam after months of trade negotiation, announcing the United States will impose a 20% tariff on many Vietnamese exports, which is a lower tariff rate than was initially planned and has helped ease tensions with one of America's most important trading partners. President Trump also said transshipped goods from other countries moving through Vietnam will face a 40% tariff. Some of those concerns have been that countries such as China have used Vietnam as a trading route to get goods still into the U.S. through Vietnam. And Vietnam has agreed to help really cut down on those and limit those as well, and be a trading partner here for the United States to impose those 40% tariffs. In return, Vietnam will allow the U.S. to have products entering into their market with zero tariffs. In a Truth Social post, President Trump said, quote, "It is my great honor to announce that I have made a trade deal with the Socialist Republic of Vietnam after speaking to Lam, the highly respected General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam." This announcement comes ahead of the July 9th deadline when tariffs on most imports across the world could increase. Under an earlier plan, Vietnamese goods were set to face a 46% tariff. It remains unclear which products will be covered by the 20% tariff rate, and details on how the new shipping rules will be enforced have not yet been released. But Vietnam did not confirm the exact tariffs, but both sides have said and agreed to the trade deal framework. Officials in Hanoi have also promised to improve access for U.S. goods, including large engine cars. So this is certainly a trade win here for U.S. agricultural exports, as well as we ship a lot of DDGs, a lot of soy, corn, and other pork, livestock products as well to Vietnam. And it is definitely one that President Trump will be touting here to constituents, Tanner, for, I'm sure, quite a foreseeable time.
Yeah, that's right. We did get a couple updates here in regards to Roundup. The U.S. Supreme Court has asked the Trump administration for its views on Bayer's effort to limit cancer lawsuits tied to Roundup. This move may suggest that justices are considering whether to take the case or not. Bayer is appealing a Missouri court ruling that upheld a $1.2 million verdict for John Durnell, who says he developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after using Roundup. The company argues the federal law bars state lawsuits like Durnell's because the EPA has found no cancer risk and doesn't require a warning on the label. The Missouri Court of Appeals disagreed, saying that federal law doesn't block state failure to warn claims. Most courts have ruled in the same, but one federal appeals court sided with Bayer, creating a legal split in the Supreme Court that they want to resolve. Bayer's CEO, Bill Anderson, had called the court's request an encouraging step, warning that this allowing state lawsuits over federally approved labels puts company at risk and threatens innovation. Bayer has faced more than 67,000 lawsuits over Roundup and has paid out $10 billion in settlements as new cases continue to be filed. And the company has had a mixed results at trial and says that it may pull Roundup from U.S. markets altogether. It has since replaced glyphosate in consumer products. The Supreme Court previously had declined to hear a similar case in 2022, but with more cases stacking up, the pressure has continued to increase scrutiny that the SCOTUS would take on this case. A decision from the Supreme Court is expected to follow the Trump administration's input. So could be a major move there for the future of Roundup.
It certainly could. And the Supreme Court's decision, if they decide to take that case on, Tanner, will be the final nail for Bayer in that coffin one way or the other.
That's correct.
Well, on Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected a challenge to California's Proposition 12 following the Iowa Pork Producer Association filing, a decision that Midwest farmers say will continue to drive up costs. The group, Iowa Pork Producers Association, turned to the Supreme Court after a federal appeals court upheld the California law last year. Proposition 12, of course, makes it illegal to sell whole pork in California unless it comes from pigs raised under specific animal welfare standards. The law applies to all uncooked pork in California, no matter where the pig was raised. In January, 23 states joined Iowa in asking the Supreme Court to hear that case. And that appeal followed an earlier ruling by the court, which said Proposition 12 does not violate the Commerce Clause. The High Court gave no reason for rejecting that case earlier this week, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh said he would have taken the case. The Iowa Pork Producers Association and state leaders say they are disappointed with the decision. Republican Congressman Randy Feenstra said the mandate will raise pork prices, increase costs for farmers, hurt rural communities, and threaten food security. But Tanner, as we just talked about there with Bear, the Supreme Court is really the final step. So proposition, it seems like will stick here moving forward.
And that might lean into some of the farmer sentiment responses that we saw as it weakened here in June after 2 months of gains. This is all according to the Purdue University and CME Group's Ag Economy Barometer. The overall index dropped 12 points, Delaney, to 146, mainly due to lower expectations for the future, while current conditions remain mostly steady. The survey does cite declining optimism amongst ag exports as a key factor to this drop. Despite this, though, all major indexes remained higher than they were 1 year ago. The Farm Financial Performance Index fell 5 points to 104, but still shows farmers expecting better financial results in 2025. Strong income prospects in the livestock sector, especially beef, are what supports this outlook. Meanwhile, the Farm Capital Investment Index rose 5 points to 60 as more farmers said it's a good time to invest. However, plans to buy machinery fell with a 54%, expecting to reduce their purchases compared to last year. As mentioned, export expectations declined as well. The percentage of farmers expecting export growth over the next 5 years dropped from 52% down to 41%, while those expecting a decline rose just a little bit. Only 31% of farmers now strongly agree that free trade benefits agriculture, down from 49% 5 years ago. Concerns about tariffs continue to be on farmers' minds, but fewer farmers expected a negative impact on their income. That number fell from 56% down to 45%, while those expecting a positive impact did grow nearly 27%. So interesting there to get a barometer, as the survey is called, on the ag economy and farmer sentiment.
Well, Tanner, as we take a look here at a final fun kind of headline here, again, a reminder before you're heating up the grill this holiday weekend, the USDA reminds everyone to stay safe to avoid foodborne illnesses during their cookouts. Here are some tips to keep in mind tomorrow and the rest of the summer as you're heating up those grills. A reminder to thaw frozen meat, poultry, and fish safely in the refrigerator, cold water, or microwave, and then cook it immediately after thawing it. I know I'm guilty of that. I usually leave it sitting on the counter before I put it in the fridge for a little while. Always marinate food in the refrigerator. Never marinate it at room temperature. Use a safe container and do not reuse marinade unless boiled first. Cook food thoroughly the first time. Use a food thermometer to check those internal temperatures. Steaks and roasts should reach 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Ground meats should reach 160, and poultry should be 165. Pork bin, of course, is a 145. Keep perishable food out of the danger zone between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. If food will be out for more than 2 hours or 1 hour, if it's above 90 degrees, keep that food hot and cold food cold. This seems like a no-brainer, but it's important to avoid those foodborne illnesses and use cooking dishes, chafing dishes, and slow cookers to keep hot foods above 140 degrees and cold foods on chilled ice or coolers. Again, these might seem like common sense things, Tanner, but I know a couple of those were some good reminders for me, and a good reminder so you don't get some of those guests you might be feeding sick as well.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than hearing that somebody left your party and doesn't feel well.
Yeah, they probably won't want to come back again anytime soon.
Nope.
Well, Tanner, as we take a look here at our interview for today, the carbon market continues to generate buzz, and one company is helping to keep that momentum going. Michelle and I sat down earlier this week with Dylan Lubbe, the commercial director at Agoro Carbon Alliance, to learn more about the company's background, its new partnership with Microsoft, and what that means for producers. Well, as we continue to think about the development of the carbon market, we're going to be chatting about a big development that happened recently in the carbon space today with Dylan Lubbe, the commercial director at Agoro Carbon. Dylan, thanks for joining us this week on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dylan, let's chat a little bit here about your background and Agoro Carbon's background. I think that's starting to become more of a household name, but share a little bit about your journey with the company and the 10,000-foot view of what Agoro Carbon does.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be really quick on my background. Not really agronomic to begin with. My background is more on the carbon markets, environmental commodity space. I've spent most of my career in that interesting space, and have been involved in many different types of commodity markets, from renewable energy, renewable fuels, and then both compliance carbon markets as well as the voluntary carbon market, which is where I'm focused now. And in this space, I deal with, or had dealt with, many different types of carbon projects, and soil carbon became an interesting topic that I stumbled upon. And I contacted Agoro Carbon. One thing led to another. I was really intrigued by their story and what they were trying to achieve by sequestering carbon through agriculture. And so, I basically joined the program, and my focus has been to really work with carbon credit buyers and tell the story of what we're trying to achieve, and ultimately leverage carbon finance through the procurement of carbon credits and use that finance to drive regen ag. But from an Agoro Carbon perspective, we were launched in 2021 by a company called Yara International. Yara has a very ambitious nature positive food future. And within that strategy, the scaling of regenerative agriculture is very prominent and features very prominently. And so therefore, Agoro Carbon is essentially launched. And so we're a pure play carbon project developer. And we've had an interesting journey from 2021 to this fantastic milestone, which I'm sure we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, why don't we get into that agreement that was made with Microsoft and what it really means for the carbon market?
Absolutely. Happy to kind of give the high level, and if we want to get further into it, more than happy to. But ultimately, it's been almost a 2-year journey. It is a significant deal. I'd say, to our knowledge, it's one of the largest soil carbon or agriculture focused carbon credit deals in the market to date. It's really the culmination of a lot of steady, hard, dedicated work by our program. Where soil carbon is in terms of the entire carbon market is very nascent. Usually carbon credit deals are transacted on a daily basis, but more from credits that exist and are purchased on an annual basis. The large scale, long term type of deals have not necessarily been the go-to for all types of projects, but this is a trend that is now taking place and hasn't existed for soil carbon. And so we're excited that I think we're one of the first to make a significant splash in terms of a long-term carbon credit deal, and not only long-term, but at a scale that these projects need to be transacted upon.
And maybe just to share some context with our listeners, Dylan, I'm going to share a couple of stats from the deal here. It's a 12-year flagship agreement with Microsoft. It's going to deliver about 2.6 million carbon removal credits with Microsoft here specifically. And I think Microsoft, hearing a big name like that, also makes it a little bit flashier of an agreement having a big partner like that in the marketplace. So let's break down this agreement a little bit more. 2.6 million carbon removal credits. That sounds like a big number. What does that mean here in practice?
Yeah, it's definitely a big number. Like I said, I don't think that we have seen a deal of this size specific to soil carbon before. So certainly a big splash, and of course having the Microsoft logo, if you will, as the buyer certainly makes it that more splashier, for lack of a better term there. But I think the key thing is we have two separate projects, one that focuses specifically on row crop and the other on pasture land, and ultimately the deal combines the two or covers both projects. So both carbon credits or carbon credit types are going to be delivered to Microsoft over this 12-year term. It does cover the 2.6 million, but ultimately the practices is what generates these carbon removals. And so for the cropland project, we generate these credits through cover crops and zero and no tillage practices. And then on the pasture land side of things, we tend to generate these credits from rotational grazing, biodiversity, seeding, etc. And so it's really the practices in these projects that are generating these credits. And yeah, we're excited to partner with Microsoft and deliver on this flagship deal.
So what does this mean for farmers? Is there then more payments given to farmers? Is there more customer base that you can get from them?
Yeah, so kind of two ways to think about this. For the producers in our program, I think what it really highlights is that we are here for the long term. We have done a significant amount of work from launching in 2021 in scaling up our operation, designing our program, and really making it farmer centric. And so the specific pain points that we are trying to solve for is the risk that the producers take on when converting from conventional agriculture to these regenerative types. That is not risk-free. And so our program is really designed to, from a financial perspective, deal with that. So our program delivers that upfront payment as well as payments on issuance. And so we are trying to essentially isolate the producers from significant volatility in this nascent market and very opaque market. Not only that, we are trying to further de-risk the producer by providing agronomic support, in a real bespoke type of way. Every grower or producer works differently. Their operations are different. And so we have dedicated, employees of ours, part of a team that's dedicated to work with these specific growers. In terms of the downstream side of the business, I think what the carbon credit market has been focused on is this trend towards more quality, and really for this market to continue to grow, and for us to continue growing agriculture or soil carbon specifically, these credits have to be high integrity. And Microsoft, we've talked about, how having such a brand name attached to our project as a buyer is a great thing. But the reason why it's important for us is because they are one of the most prominent buyers in the market from a quality standpoint. They are really trying to drive the market from a quality perspective, and we really feel that their purchase or their agreement with us is a validation or endorsement of our quality criteria, or at least the quality attributes of our project and our company that meet their quality criteria. So the size of the deal, the long-term nature of the deal, the purchaser in the deal, I think really sends a message to the downstream market that Agoro Carbon is a high quality soil carbon producer, and for our producers means that we're here for the long term. We're extremely committed to the mission of driving regen ag through these carbon finance mechanisms, and I think that's the type of deal that we're trying to make, and this is the blueprint for making these projects work for scale and long term nature.
Now, I'm really curious, Dylan, to have you allow us to peek behind the curtain a little bit. As you mentioned earlier, this was a 2-year deal, I think you said, in the making. When you think about a big name like Microsoft, they're in the tech space, right? They're not in the agriculture, regenerative agriculture space. And so when we hear in the ag community companies like this coming into this space, or we hear Coca-Cola or General Mills, or maybe some of these that are in the food space, we can kind of make that leap of why a food company might want to be in the regen ag space. But when a company like Microsoft comes into the regen ag space, I think that's harder for a producer to make that leap of the connection there. What were some of the conversations leading up to that? And maybe help us peek behind the curtain to understand, what does a company like Microsoft see as the value of partnering and being in this space?
Yeah, I think great question, and I think almost a natural question. It does sound strange that the largest tech company in the world is taking a huge commitment on the ag sector. But really, I think the reason why is because Microsoft has very aggressive climate or sustainability targets. one of the key kind of sectors and the potential to address carbon emissions is soil as being a natural sink. So they've invested heavily from a due diligence perspective, and the reason why these deals take long is because they are large, and so they require amount of due diligence. And so you'll be surprised about the expertise that Microsoft, even as a tech company, has within their carbon team. And so we've worked with the experts from a scientific perspective within Microsoft, as well as some third-party advisors. And they've really taken a deep dive into our project, how it's designed, and as well as the science behind it. How do we collect data? What's the quality of that data? How do we quantify our credits? What's our soil sampling design? How do we interact with our producers? What does that look like? What tools do we have to essentially manage that engagement? And what our mission is, and does it align with what they are trying to achieve? And what they are trying to achieve is to scale carbon finance within the ag sector. And so it is a good match, and yeah, it's a good one from a perspective of who potentially purchases these credits, and really it is sector agnostic. I think the benefit here is that soil carbon doesn't have to go to the food and beverage companies. It can go to the finance sector, it can go to the tech sector, it can go to the industrial sector. I think the important thing is that there is a massive opportunity for us to take the carbon credit sales and use that as a financing mechanism for growers, just as an additional revenue stream. And then for the growers specifically, that is the financial piece that kind of gets them over the line on actually adopting these practices that we are offering, and then the support that we give. But more importantly, I think what's important for the growers and the producers out there is that operational benefits are something that they may experience as well. And so, I think we've had a chat about how warm it's been lately, but what we hope to achieve is that these fields and these agricultural operations experience more resiliency, improve soil health, water retention, lower input costs, etc. And so really it's just a really great mechanism to, one, increase actual cash to the grower, but also improve the operational benefits as well. And having those two align with carbon credit buyers is just a great deal for everyone involved.
If you look at the bigger picture, are there more carbon credit buyers than there are farmers interested in these type of programs? Or what would you say is the way the market has developed to here in 2025?
That's a great question. I don't think I've actually had that question before. So I'm not too sure. I certainly think that as of now, there's probably more, producers interested in the program or producers out there is one thing. But I think interested producers, we hope so. Certainly there are a lot of interested buyers. But this market has, taken some time to grow, and it has gone through some pain points. As I said earlier, the transition from a nascent market into a more robust, mature market, and that only occurring once we make buyers feel confident that the credits that they purchase are high quality. That is when I think we'll have mass scale. But hopefully, I think what our intention here in terms of like putting this flagship blueprint deal together is to show carbon credit buyers that this is the type of transaction that these projects require at the relevant quality thresholds that we have. So we're really trying to make this market from a transaction type, from a quality type. And if we can achieve that, then at the same time, we generate that same confidence from producers that this is a market that actually works and can deliver the finance needed for these growers to adopt these practices. And again, the cherry on top, that these operational benefits occur over the long term as well.
Well, Dylan, we appreciate your time in joining us today. Final question for you. This program is just recently announced. It's brand new. When does it take effect? When can farmers start to sign up for it?
Right now, we have annual enrollments, and so we've been enrolling producers since 2021, and I would encourage all row crop and pasture land producers to please get in contact with our enrollment team. We have some fantastic people, and that's not just from me, that's from Microsoft now as well. They'd be happy to talk to anyone interested, and they would be best to talk about what our offerings are, what that means for growers, and what the type of practices we offer.
Perfect. Well, Dylan, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight and time, and looking forward to see how this partner shapes up.
Thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate the two of you doing that interview, but since you got to have a fun story prior to that interview, I figured I'd throw some fun holiday jokes in here, Delaney. What do you call an American revolutionary who draws cartoons?
I don't know what.
A Yankee Doodler. So if you can't tell already, the theme of these jokes is probably cheesy dad jokes, but you might be able to share these at your holiday barbecue. What did one flag say to the other flag?
I can't even guess that one.
Nothing. They just waved.
I should have seen that one coming.
What is red, white, blue, and green?
Something with the flag, I feel like, but I don't.
Oh, it's a seasick Uncle Sam. And I bet you're wondering why I haven't thrown any knock-knock jokes in about America.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because freedom rings. So I wanted to make sure our listeners had some humor arsenal in their quiver, so that way this weekend when they're with family and friends, they can share those. I don't have any fertilizer market updates, Delaney, but do you have any commodity market updates?
Well, Tanner, the only market headline I wanted to hit this week is what really a lot of folks were paying attention to, which was the June acreage report, which came out earlier this week on Monday. This was the big headline. A lot of the markets are paying attention to it. We've got a holiday shortened week this week with markets being closed on Friday. So I want to just take a quick spin here through some of those numbers. So as we take a look here, USDA did slightly adjust acreage numbers, but not too terribly much. As we take a look first here at the corn plantings report, June acreage came in not too terribly different from the March acreage report. June came in at a 95.2 million acres. The March prospective plantings report was at a 95.3 million acres. This is just slightly higher, of course, or slightly lower, of course, from March's number, but this is 5% higher from last year's report. So going to see some bigger corn acres this year. The market's really largely already factored that in, of course, based on March's prospective plantings number. When we take a look at soybeans, that one also came in just slightly lower from the March prospective plantings report. June's number here reflected 83.4 million acres of soybeans. March's was at 83.5. So again, a number that the markets have really already chewed through. The wheat prospective plantings number, in line with where USDA was at in March, raised just slightly at a 45.5 million acres. March's reflected a 45.4. So really no big surprises there in the prospective plantings report. When we look at the grain stocks numbers, which also came out in that quarterly report as well, quarterly grain stocks, again, not any big surprises there when we look at numbers that came out. When we look at just corn grain stocks, those came in slightly tighter than where we were this time last year, but soybeans, those are pretty much in line with where we were this time last year. We've inched a little bit higher, and we've inched a little bit higher in wheat as well, but pretty much kind of a non-report, neutral report theme across the board here. And that really didn't do much to excite the markets this week. So that's kind of a quick look at where we're at. Markets really are going to be focused on weather here moving forward. Hot and dry is not seeming like it's going to be in the forecast, though, as we reported on earlier. we're continuing to get that wet weather in the forecast, and that continues to be the story. So that is kind of a quick look here at the markets, Tanner. Any other final 4th of July jokes for us?
No, I don't. I'm just looking forward to seeing family and friends. I hope our listeners are looking forward to the same. We appreciate you tagging along with us even on these short holiday weeks. So we'll be back on schedule next Friday. Don't miss a beat. Make sure you check all of our social media channels out and hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
That's right. And thanks again for tuning in with us. Have a safe and happy 4th of July.